Ladies and gentlemen, Liz Cheney is pretty much irrelevant in the Republican Party now because she voted to impeach President Trump. She didn't stand up to Trump. She didn't uphold any values important to this country. President Trump hasn't been taken to a court of law. The Attorney General of D.C. and the mayor of D.C. haven't leveled charges at President Trump. Why is that? That's because his words did not influence other human beings to commit atrocious acts or illegal activity. That did not happen. He's protected under the First Amendment. Political speech is protected. Sorry, Democrats. You want to erase... Democrats wanted to abolish the Electoral College. Oh, look! Now they don't care about that. They wanted to pack the courts. They want to restrict the First Amendment and, of course, the Second Amendment. So they're the ones who want to do away with norms and traditions. But nobody is taking President Trump to a court of law because it would be laughed out of court. That's how you should look at this, ladies and gentlemen. There shouldn't have been protests that day. There needed to be a national dialogue and discourse, which was not created. But you have a situation where Liz Cheney and other Republicans, Liz Cheney obviously has, Dick Cheney, her father, she had more influence than the other Republicans. She could have started a revolt against President Trump. I'm sure she probably tried to. Mitt Romney and Ben Sasse and a couple other never-Trumpers would have joined whatever revolt that she started. It failed miserably because President Trump has transformed the Republican Party. So it is no longer a party of the Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld mentality or foreign policy vision, which was not, there was no vision. It was just never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. So hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is a very important segment. Get this. We're on our way to 200,000 subscribers. If you want to read my writing in the Hill, the Huffington Post, Salon, the Jerusalem Post, go to hagoodman.com. If you want to support my voice long term, my Patreon is below. Ladies and gentlemen, there are a couple of other issues too. So McConnell condemned. We'll get to that in a second. And he supported Liz Cheney. Here's the issue. Republicans investigated a Republican president. Democrats would never do that. So there's no Democratic Party equivalent of Jeff Sessions. Okay? That does not happen. If anything, you have, the cult is not the Republican Party. The cult is the Democratic Party. So much so that you have Jimmy Dore, who is a hero. What is he trying to do? He's literally telling he's trying to force a vote on Medicare for all. They have the House. Democrats control the House, control the Senate, and the presidency. This is their time to implement Medicare for all, Green New Deal legislation, universal basic income. These are the policies that left-leaning voters say, okay, I'm just going to vote Democrat because, eventually we'll get these policies. Well, Jimmy Dore says, hey, now is the time. Just a vote. They don't even have to pass the Medicare for all. Just vote on it. Just see how much interest there is in the Democratic Party. There's zero interest. That's the issue. So he's very heroic, and others who've joined him in trying to force that because they promised Medicare for all. You had Kamala Harris even talking about it. Okay? They promised it. Bernie Sanders, AOC raised millions upon millions of dollars. Okay, in part, he raised hundreds of millions in 2016, and we saw what happened. The DNC chair, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, was forced to resign. Now they can't even vote on Medicare for all. The whole thing is a giant grift and racket and scam. They promised policies they have no intention of backing to get left-leaning voters to vote back into the Democratic Party. Then you have Jimmy Dore saying, hey, why don't you this is the moment now. You have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. You have even AOC and Bernie Sanders, and definitely the $20 million venture capital people and the entire apparatus that said Trump worked with Russia. They're the same people who, by the way, we can get into Bernie Sanders not endorsing one of the $20 million venture capital people, or unendorsing him, which is hilarious. But it's a racket where they promise the world, they deliver nothing to the left, and then anyone who kind of calls them out and says, hey, live up to your ideals, or at least, fulfill your promises. So Jimmy Dore is telling them to fulfill their promises, and they say, no, you can't do that. Oh my God, look, this person is creating division. Anytime you push back against the Democratic Party absurd mentality, Trump worked with Russia because of Facebook ads. That's very patriotic to bring up. Oh no, he didn't. Oh my God, you're a Putin puppet. You're working for the Kremlin. When President Trump or Republicans that defended him during the whole Trump-Russia hoax, when any pushback takes place, it's, oh my God, you're siding with Putin. Oh my God, this is national security. It wasn't national. Facebook ads aren't national security. First of all, second of all, we have no clue how many Facebook ads swung, voters in 2016. But again, what Trump did was essentially the same thing they did, although he didn't have a political party, he didn't have corrupt intelligence officials, and he didn't have media backing him. Any suspicion they leveled against Trump is investigated. What President Trump needed to do is find a way to investigate allegations. But see, that's another issue altogether. What's taking place within the Republican Party is that Liz Cheney now has been excommunicated. She's it's no longer a regime change, interventionist, fundamentalist foreign, Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld type of foreign policy. The Lincoln Project would be advising Republicans now if it were still a Liz Cheney, Ben Sasse, Mitt Romney type of political party. They're not the Republicans. Like, I've been doing these segments, and it's very interesting. There's no more Republican Party. There's no more GOP run by people like Jeb Bush or Mitt Romney or Ben Sasse. You might have Mitt Romney and Ben Sasse and other never Trumpers win a state, like become senator or become a representative. That's fine. What I'm not saying is that's fine. That might happen just because they have a base of support in their region of the country. Nationally, it's a populist political party. You're going to see that in 2022. After 2022, primaries for the midterms for Republican candidates, the Republican candidates for the midterms, they're going to be Trump Republicans. They're going to be Republicans who embrace a non-interventionist foreign policy. The reason to vote for President Trump was because you opposed military interventions and regime changes. It's very difficult to tell this to people who don't get it. They don't understand. If you oppose never-ending wars and quagmires, if you tell that to a liberal or an ever-Trumper, it's like they get this glazed look. They're the ones in the cult. I don't care if you think climate change is more important than ending perpetual counterinsurgency conflicts. I think we need to end counterinsurgency conflicts and bring Americans home. That's the main reason I was a Bernie Sanders supporter and the main reason I support President Trump. There's a direct line between Bernie Sanders and President Trump on that issue and other issues. So the establishment Democrats are right about one thing. Bernie Sanders does lead to voting for President Trump, and rightfully so. Trump was a great president in terms of achievement. Nobody can deny being the first president to step foot in North Korea, the Abraham Accords, peace between Israel, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Serbia, and Kosovo, economic deals. He reversed President Obama's failed foreign policy. You look, ladies and gentlemen, and Democrats, whether it's President Obama with Libya, turning it into a failed state, or Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld causing an entire region of the country, of the world, to just turn into failed states and completely destabilize regions of the world. That's no longer the GOP that once was. That's it. The Republican Party also was afraid to engage in tariffs in the manner that President Trump engaged in them. That was the tariffs were working before the pandemic. But if you want to say, well, no, they really weren't working, the CEOs, the steel CEOs especially, asked for them. President Trump there's no Republican or Democrat who would have done what he did in terms of those tariffs, which were asked for by steel CEOs and others. That's a more populist viewpoint. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's actually a very good thing. Because in 30 years, we will be the third largest economy after China and India. And you will have no way to compete. Multinational economic deals will be completely meaningless because we'll be the distant third. And so we'll have zero leverage. And so, I mean, that's just one vantage point in terms of economics. But see, again, Trump was willing to do things, and he achieved great things. The problem, like I said, he did not. He should this is why I'm going to explain. There were missteps. We have to learn from the missteps. Now, President Trump should not have insulted LeBron James. He should not have insulted NFL athletes. If you say no, that's not true. He has a right to his opinion. It did him no good politically. And it did the country no good because there was no national dialogue or discourse. It was just two factions. Trump supporters don't have media or corrupt intelligence officials or Hollywood. So the good things that he did, like allocating more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any other president ever, and making the funding permanent, signing the First Step Act, presiding over record low black and Latino unemployment, record lows in unemployment, record highs in the stock market. The pandemic wasn't Trump's fault. You had Cuomo and Whitmer and Phil Murphy who get away with everything. The New York Times, you can look, Democrats preside over the worst outcomes. That's not Trump's fault. But again, there's no national discourse because there's no opposition political party, even though Liz Cheney has been kicked out, essentially. She's still there, obviously, but kicked out in terms of influence. The Republicans haven't yet come to terms with the fact that they're now controlled by President Trump, and rightfully so. They haven't come to terms with the fact because there's still people, it's run by Trump, it's a more populist political party, but they don't know it yet because there are too many Republicans in Congress from the old guard. That being said, you have the issue of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She should apologize the way Cenk Uygur, the way Joy Reid, and the way others apologized for, and Biden for his, he didn't even apologize. He said it never happened. But their skeletons are plentiful. You have Bernie Sanders, who didn't even who unendorsed Uygur for things that he said. We can go through. You had TYT with a racial discrimination lawsuit, CNN with a racial discrimination lawsuit. The people who judge and condemn have the most skeletons. Okay? Marjorie Taylor Greene, if she insulted a religion, she should apologize. Very simple. Okay? If she said something about a region of the world, she should apologize. And leave it at that and say, okay, I didn't mean that, or I apologize for, because I haven't heard quotes from her, but what they're doing is the same thing they tried to do to President Trump. They were successful just because of Trump's usage of Twitter. But I know that there are going to be people saying, no, she shouldn't apologize. Why? She shouldn't apologize at all. It doesn't help politically because it takes away from any good accomplishment. Trump has accomplished great things. The Trump Republicans have accomplished and will accomplish great things. If Marjorie Taylor Greene is the new monster now, she should simply be smart And because the thing is, the whole, like, for a second she retweeted QAnon nonsense, garbage, dangerous hoax. I exposed that 2 years ago in my debate with Jordan Sather. It's on my website. I called it dangerous. I exposed it for a hoax that it is. And it was. I told people never to listen to absurd message boards that are almost certainly have to be run by Democratic operatives. Notice how Democrats don't want to find out who's running those things. Gee, I wonder why. It's almost certainly because you couldn't create something more detrimental to a political cause than lame, absurd message board hoaxes that are dangerous. So I opposed that 2 years ago, okay? But see, they're linking Marjorie Taylor Greene to all of this. And it takes away from, even if you think, no, she shouldn't apologize, you fight, we don't have, like, Trump doesn't have media because there's no opposition political party. Republicans don't speak with one voice. McConnell is even defending Liz Cheney and then going after Marjorie Taylor Greene. She should simply apologize, because it's the right thing to do if she said something, offensive. Just like the left, when they say something, they get caught in the act, or they have skeletons in their closet, they apologize, and all is forgiven. So she needs to do exactly what the left does. But again, that's just one, like, representative. What they're trying to do is, again, they have political problems. They have no intention of Medicare for all. They're having, like, an upheaval, like, on the left, a revolt on the left, rightfully so, because finally, like, there are people who are just not going to take it anymore. That's good. I'm not on the left, but I find Jimmy Dore, like, and others very heroic. Okay? And he's single-handedly, I mean, there are other people, like, Nico House is amazing. There are other people joining Jimmy Dore and, like, really forcing the Democratic Party to live up to what they've promised for so long, my God. But Democrats, like when AOC tells Ted Cruz, you know what, you try to ruin my life. She's not taking him to a court of law. She's utilizing a political stunt, propaganda, media spin to their advantage. So where they can deflect from actual real problems that the Democrats have. Democrats are held up by, like, smoke and mirrors. They have every possible conceivable advantage. So, which is why we have to learn, like, President Trump has to learn from the missteps. You cannot insult NFL athletes or LeBron James or do those things because the message, if you disagree with the anthem protest, then have a philosophical discussion, because there are a great many African Americans and Latinos that disagree with that protest. So have a discussion and philosophical, discourse, create a debate. Don't do so with a bulldozer sledgehammer mentality. This way, you circumvent the media spin. Media wants just two opposing factions in the United States of America. But Trump never had that. So he had to understand that he wasn't going to get backup from the Republican Party like a normal Republican president would have. So he has to wait at least until 2022 and even tone it down then a little bit. There are missteps that took place the past 4 years, and part of it was rhetoric. You fix the rhetoric, there's no stopping Trump. There's no stopping Trump. Because in 2022, he completely takes over the Republican Party. But anyway, give me your thoughts below. I mean, it's already taken over now, but there's still remnants of the old regime, the ancien regime. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. I'll be back a little